I say thank you to servers even when they forget my water. I spent 43 years as a paralegal in downtown St. Louis, the kind who triple-checked dates and stapled exhibits in the right order. The kind who stayed late without being asked. The kind who believed that if you carried your weight quietly, no one would ever think to drop it on you. That belief ended on New Year's Eve, at my son's dining table, with 27 relatives chanting in unison while I stood holding a bowl of mashed potatoes. It ended with the word burden. I had arrived early, because that's what I do. I brought the potatoes because my son, Michael, asked me to. Yukon Golds peeled and boiled that morning, mashed with butter and cream until they were smooth enough to pass for love. I had tied a ribbon around the serving bowl because I still believed in gestures. Michael's house was loud already when I stepped inside. Laughter ricocheted off the walls. Music thumped from a speaker somewhere upstairs. His wife, Karen, swept past me in a cloud of perfume and didn't look at my face. "Oh, there you are," she said, like I'd been late. "Just set that anywhere." I hovered, scanning the kitchen for space. Every surface was crowded with platters and bottles and hands reaching over each other. No one moved to help me. No one took the bowl. I told myself not to take it personally. I told myself that holidays are chaos and chaos has no manners. I told myself a lot of things that night. I set the bowl down on a corner of the counter and smoothed my sweater. It was navy blue cashmere, a gift I'd bought myself on clearance after my 68th birthday. I remember thinking it might be too nice for a family dinner. I remember thinking that was silly. The first micro hook of the evening was the seating. There were 28 chairs at the table. I counted because I always count. There were 27 relatives. Michael had told me he was inviting everyone. "It'll be big, Mom," he'd said, "but fun." When it came time to sit, I realized there was no chair for me. Everyone else was already settling in, pulling chairs close, clinking glasses. Table was full, tight with elbows and plates. I stood at the end, hands folded, waiting for someone to notice. No one did. Karen glanced up finally, her smile thin. "Oh, right, we can grab a folding chair." She said it like she was offering me a favor. Michael didn't look at me. He was pouring wine for his cousin Dave, laughing at something on his phone. A folding chair appeared from the garage. Metal, cold, it wobbled when I sat. It placed me slightly behind the table, my knees brushing the wall. I couldn't reach the serving dishes without standing. I smiled anyway. The chanting came later, after the toasts. After Michael stood and clinked his glass and talked about family and blessings and how grateful he was to host. After Karen added something about all of us together under one roof, her eyes sliding past me like I wasn't under it. It started as a joke. That's how these things always start. Cousin Bate said something about how cramped the house was. Uncle Ron laughed and said they needed an expansion. Someone else said, or fewer people. Laughter, a ripple. I felt it before I heard it, like a change in air pressure. Then Dave said, "Well, we all know who takes up the most space." Someone else chimed in. "Yeah, the freeloaders." I felt my face warm. I looked at Michael. He still didn't look at me. Karen laughed. "Oh, come on, it's New Year's, let's be honest." Honest, that word landed heavy. "Burden," someone said. I don't know who said it first, I know who didn't stop it. "Burden, burden." It became a chant, rhythmic, ugly, bouncing off the walls. 27 voices, some laughing, some embarrassed, some eager to belong to the moment. I stood there with my hands on the back of the folding chair, the room tilting slightly, like I'd stood up too fast. They were chanting at me. At the woman who'd paid Michael's first semester of college when his scholarship fell through. At the woman who'd watched his children every summer for 6 years so Karen could find herself. At the woman whose social security check had quietly supplemented their mortgage for 18 months after Michael lost his job and didn't tell anyone. Burden, I smiled. That was the part no one noticed. Or maybe they noticed and thought it meant I agreed. I smiled and I picked up my coat and I said, "I'm going to head out, it's getting late." Karen waved a hand. "Drive safe." Michael finally looked at me then, just for a second. His eyes slid away quickly like he'd touched something hot. I walked out into the cold with my empty casserole dish and sat in my car until my hands stopped shaking. That night at 11:47 p.m., while fireworks cracked somewhere in the distance, I sent one text message. Just a name. It was the first move in a game I had been playing for months without admitting it to myself. I didn't sleep that night. I made tea and sat at my kitchen table and let the silence settle. I thought about all the small things I'd ignored. The way Michael always needed help just this once. The way Karen talked about my house like it was already gone. The way my mail sometimes arrived already opened when they visited. I thought about the file folder in my desk drawer, the one I'd started after my neighbor Louise mentioned, offhand, that it might be wise to get things in order. Louise had lost her sister to a son who loved her right into bankruptcy. I had laughed it off then. That was 8 months earlier. The next morning, New Year's Day, I labeled the folder estate planning. I spent January quietly. That's the thing people don't understand about women like me. Quiet doesn't mean passive, it means patient. I made appointments and canceled lunches. I stopped volunteering extra information. I I listened more than I spoke. When Michael called, I let it ring sometimes before answering. Not to be cruel, to observe. I met with an attorney named Ellen Parker on January 12th. I remember the date because it was snowing and I wore the same navy sweater. Ellen had kind eyes and a sharp pen. "Tell me what you want," she said. I told her what I wanted to protect. Then I told her what I was afraid of. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she nodded once. "We can do that." February brought a forensic accountant. His name was Thomas Reed. He smelled faintly of coffee and asked precise questions. I brought bank statements going back 5 years. I had them because I always kept everything. We found things, transfers I hadn't authorized, small at first, then larger, a signature that looked like mine if you didn't look too closely. Accounts I'd forgotten I'd opened temporarily. I felt sick. Then I felt clear. March brought a health scare, minor. A flutter that turned out to be nothing, but it focused me. I updated my will. I changed beneficiaries. I documented everything. Michael didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't ask. He still called when he needed something. A check, a favor, babysitting last minute. I said yes often enough to keep the rhythm. By April, I had what Ellen called leverage. By May, I had resolve. The second micro hook came in June when Karen cornered me in my own kitchen and asked, casually, what I planned to do with the house eventually. Eventually, I said, smiling, is a long time. She didn't smile back. July was when Thomas found the big one, a line item that made his eyebrows lift. "Did you authorize this?" he asked. I shook my head. "That's a problem," he said. "For them?" August was paperwork and patience. September brought a family barbecue. I brought potato salad. Karen made a comment about downsizing. Michael laughed. I smiled. October, Ellen drafted letters. November, I rehearsed nothing. I don't rehearse, I prepare. December came around again, and with it, invitations. Michael called. "We're doing New Year's again. You'll come, right?" "Yes," I said. "I'll come." On December 30th, I put my phone on the table and reread the text thread from last year. The chant, the jokes, the silence. I typed one name again. I didn't send it yet. On New Year's Eve, I dressed carefully, comfortable but dignified. I left the casserole dish at home. The third micro hook was the look on Karen's face when I walked in empty-handed. "Oh," she said. "Did you forget?" "No," I said. "I didn't forget." Dinner unfolded much like the year before. Noise, laughter, too many people. This time there was a chair for me, a real one. Progress, I thought. The chant never came. Maybe they'd learned. Maybe they thought better of it. Or maybe they assumed I'd forgot. After dessert, Michael stood again. Another toast, another speech about family. "And Mom," he said, smiling at me now, performing affection. "We're so glad you're here." I met his eyes. At 9:03 p.m., my phone buzzed in my pocket. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. My heart was steady. My hands were not. I typed the name. I hit send. The fourth micro hook was the sound of a knock at the door 20 minutes later. Hard, official. Michael frowned. Karen froze. I stayed seated. When Michael opened the door, the room went quiet. Two people stood there. One man in a suit, one woman with a clipboard. "Michael Harris?" the man asked. "Yes. We need to speak with you regarding financial discrepancies and potential elder exploitation." Karen's face drained of color. I felt 27 sets of eyes turned toward me. I folded my napkin. The woman with the clipboard looked past Michael, scanning the room. Her gaze landed on me. "Mrs. Harris?" she asked gently. "Yes," I said. "That's me." The room held its breath. I stood. I think," I said, my voice calm, "it's time we were honest." "I think," I said, my voice calm, "it's time we were honest." You could have heard a spoon drop. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. Michael looked like he was waiting for someone to tell him this was a prank, that a camera would appear and everyone would laugh. The man in the suit stepped inside without waiting for permission. He carried himself like someone used to rooms changing when he entered them. The woman followed, efficient, eyes already cataloging faces. "We'll need a quiet place to talk," the man said. Michael gestured vaguely toward the study, his movements jerky. This is ridiculous," he muttered. "There's been some mistake." "There usually is," the woman said. "That's why we're here." They disappeared down the hall with Michael and Karen trailing behind them like children called to the principal's office. The door closed. The room exhaled all at once. Voices rose immediately. "What's going on? Did you know about this? Is this some kind of joke?" I remained standing for a moment, then sat back down. I picked up my water glass and took a sip. My hands were steady now. Cousin Bate leaned toward me, her voice low. "Judith, what did you do?" I met her eyes. "I protected myself." Someone laughed nervously. "Oh, come on, this is family." I looked around the table. 25 faces now because two were missing behind the closed door. Faces I'd known for decades. Faces that had chanted. "Yes," I said, "it is." The fifth micro hook came in the form of raised voices from the study. Not words at first. Tone, panic. I didn't need to hear the details to know what was happening. I'd sat in conference rooms just like that one for 43 years. I knew the cadence of discovery. The way denial cracked into anger, then fear. Aunt Linda stood abruptly. "I'm not comfortable with this," she said. "I think we should leave." A few people nodded, gathering coats. Others stayed rooted, unable to look away. Cousin Dave scoffed. This is overblown. Michael wouldn't. The study door opened. Karen came out first. She was crying, but not prettily. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked around the room like she'd just woken up somewhere unfamiliar. This is insane, she said. She set us up. Michael followed. His face was red, his jaw tight. He didn't look at me. He looked at the table, at the relatives, at anywhere but my eyes. The man in the suit cleared his throat. We'll be conducting a formal investigation, he said. There are documents that suggest unauthorized access to Mrs. Harris's accounts over an extended period. Unauthorized? Karen shrieked. She gave us permission? I stood again. No, I said quietly. I didn't. Karen rounded on me. You needed help, you said you were confused. Said I wanted help understanding, I corrected. There's a difference. Michael finally looked at me then, his eyes were wild. Mom, he said, why didn't you just talk to me? I felt something twist in my chest, not regret, recognition. I did, I said, many times you didn't listen. The woman with the clipboard stepped forward. Mrs. Harris will need to ask you some questions as well, but for tonight we recommend you go home. I am home, Michael snapped. She looked at him evenly. Not tonight. There was a moment, just a moment, where I thought Michael might shout or cry or collapse. Instead, he laughed, short and sharp. You're doing this because of some stupid joke, he said, gesturing toward the table. That chant, you're punishing us. I shook my head. No, that chant showed me who you were willing to be. Silence. People began to leave in earnest then. Coats pulled on, goodbyes mumbled. No one met my eyes as they passed. I collected my purse and walked toward the door. Karen blocked my path. You think you've won, she hissed. You think you're so smart? I leaned in close enough that only she could hear me. I don't think in terms of winning, I said. I think in terms of surviving. I stepped around her and into the cold night. January came back around, different this time. I was interviewed twice, once at my kitchen table, once at Ellen's office. I answered questions calmly, provided copies, pointed to dates and signatures. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. Michael called me 3 times in one day. I didn't answer. When I did answer 2 days later, he sounded small. They froze our accounts, he said. Karen's parents won't help. They think we're criminals. I closed my eyes. You should get a lawyer. I can't afford. You can't afford not to, I said and hung up. February brought charges, not the kind that land you on the evening news, but the kind that rearrange your life. Restitution, probation, a record that doesn't disappear. Karen moved out. Took the kids, told everyone Michael had manipulated her, told everyone I'd betrayed her. Michael moved into a rented room above a garage. He stopped calling. March was quiet, too quiet at first. I found myself reaching for the phone, then stopping. Old habits don't die easily. I filled the time carefully. I joined a book club. I took long walks. I cooked for one and learned to enjoy it. In April, Louise came over with lemon bars. You look lighter, she said. I am, I said, surprised to find it was true. May brought a letter from Michael's lawyer, formal, apologetic, requesting mediation. Ellen read it, then looked at me. You don't have to respond. I know, I said, but I will. We met in June in a neutral office with bad art on the walls. Michael looked older, thinner. He didn't bring Karen, he didn't bring the kids. I didn't think you'd actually do it, he said after a while. I thought you always let things go. I nodded. I did. Until I couldn't. He rubbed his hands together. I was under a lot of pressure. So was I said. He swallowed. I'm sorry. The apology hung there, fragile. I believe you're sorry now, I said. I don't know if you were then. He flinched. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about trust, about consequences. When we stood to leave, he hesitated. Do you still love me? I didn't answer right away. Yes, I said finally. But love doesn't mean access. He nodded, tears in his eyes. July was hot and heavy with thunderstorms. I repainted the living room, a soft green. August brought my 70th birthday. I celebrated with friends, no family. It was perfect. September, I finalized a new estate plan, charities, scholarships, a trust with conditions so clear they sang. October, I received a text from an unknown number. It was Karen. You ruined everything. I deleted it. November, I volunteered at a legal clinic once a week. Old skills, new purpose. December came again, inevitable. On New Year's Eve, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea. Fireworks cracked in the distance. My phone buzzed. Michael, I let it ring. At midnight, I turned off the light and went to bed. In the dark, I thought about that first text. Just a name, how small it had seemed, how heavy. I slept well. I woke up on January 1st to sunlight on the wall and the unfamiliar sensation of peace. Not relief. Peace is quieter than that. Relief still listens for the other shoe. Peace just breathes. I made coffee and stood at the sink, watching steam curl up toward the cabinets Michael had once promised to replace. I never had them replaced. I realized, standing there, that I liked them just fine. The first week of January passed without incident. No calls, no letters. I almost believed the worst was over. It never is. The first shoe dropped on January 9th when my neighbor Louise knocked on my door with a look she usually reserved for funerals and city council meetings. Have you seen Facebook? She asked. I don't have Facebook, I said. She winced. Then maybe don't. I poured us tea anyway, she told me. Karen had posted a long, winding post about betrayal and cruelty, about a mother who weaponized the system, about how elders could be abusers too. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. She tagged cousins, friends commented, some defended her, some asked questions, some told stories of their own. The comments section, Louise said, was a war zone. I listened, nodding, my hands wrapped around the mug. Do you want me to show you? Louise asked. No, I said. If I need to know, it'll find me. It did. By afternoon, I had 3 voicemails from relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. Concerned, curious, accusatory. I deleted them without listening. The second micro hook came 2 days later in the form of a certified letter. Michael had filed a civil suit. Ellen read it slowly, her lips pressed together. This is ambitious, she said. What does that mean? I asked. It means he's angry, she said, and scared. The suit alleged undue influence, manipulation, emotional distress. I felt tired suddenly, not defeated, just tired. I don't want to fight him, I said. Ellen looked at me. You already are, the question is how. We filed a response, calm, factual, backed by documents that did not blink. January stretched on, gray and cold. I attended a deposition. I answered questions about my mental state, my memory, my intentions. Do you consider yourself forgetful? The attorney asked. No, I said. I consider myself thorough. He didn't smile. In February, Karen filed for divorce. Michael called me that night. I didn't know she would, he said, his voice cracking. She's taking the kids. She says it's because of you? I closed my eyes. Michael, I said gently, this is between you and her. I just want things to go back, he said. I want it to be like before. I thought of the folding chair, the chant, the open mail. I don't, I said. There was a long silence, then a sound like he was breathing through water. February ended with mediation ordered by the court. We sat across from each other in a room that smelled faintly of disinfectant and despair. Michael looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, something else. The mediator spoke about compromise, about healing, about family. Michael leaned forward. If you just reverse the changes, he said. The will, the accounts, we can put this behind us. I looked at him, really looked. No, I said, his face hardened. So that's it. That's it, I said. The third micro hook came in March when Thomas, the forensic accountant, called me unexpectedly. There's been a development, he said, my stomach tight. What kind? Karen's attorney subpoenaed records, he said. They found additional transfers. From me? I asked. No, he said. From Michael? The line went quiet. He continued after you froze access, Thomas said, using a different method. I sat down heavily. What does that mean? It means the civil suit is likely going away, he said, and something else may take its place. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt grief, deep and sharp. Michael had crossed another line. I hadn't even known he was near. April brought indictments, not for me, for him. I received a call from a reporter. I declined comment. The story ran anyway, vague, anonymous. Local man charged in financial exploitation case. Louise brought over soup. We ate in silence. I never thought he'd go that far, I said finally. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're allowed to be wrong about people you love, she said. It doesn't make you foolish. The civil suit was dismissed in May. Michael pled guilty in June. Probation, mandatory restitution, counseling. Karen moved out of state with the kids. I didn't see Michael that summer. I gardened, I read, I volunteered. In July, I received a letter from the legal clinic where I volunteered, thanking me for my service. They asked if I'd consider training new volunteers. I said yes. August came with heat and cicadas and my 71st birthday. I invited Louise and 3 women from book club. We laughed until our sides hurt. I didn't think about Michael until someone asked if I had children. I do, I said, but tonight I'm celebrating me. September brought another letter. This one was handwritten. Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you should. I'm in counseling. They make me talk about things I don't want to remember, about entitlement, about anger. I'm sorry for the chant. I hear it now in my head and I can't make it stop. I don't expect forgiveness. Just wanted you to know I understand what I did. Michael, I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in the estate planning folder. October was calm, too calm. The 4th micro hook arrived in November when Karen called me. Her voice was brittle. I need to talk to you. I don't think it's about the kids, she said quickly. I agreed to meet her in a coffee shop halfway between our houses. She arrived late, sunglasses on, hair pulled back tight. I'm struggling, she said without preamble. The settlement isn't enough. Michael can't pay what he owes. The kids need stability. I waited. I know you changed things, she said. The trust, the conditions. Yes, I said. She leaned forward. If you adjust them, she said, just a little we can? No, I said again, her mouth tight. You're punishing the children. I felt a flare of anger then, real hot. I'm protecting them, I said, from learning that cruelty pays. She scoffed. You think you're some kind of hero. I met her eyes. No, I said, I think I'm done being a villain in your story. She left without finishing her drink. December came back around. I received an invitation, not from Michael, from my niece Bate, small gathering, she wrote, just immediate family, no drama. I considered it for a long time. On December 30th, I called her. I won't be coming, I said. She sounded disappointed. We miss you. I miss who I thought you were, I said gently. I'm still getting to know who you are. New Year's Eve arrived again. I sat at my kitchen table with tea, fireworks in the distance, the same table where I'd sent that first text. My phone buzzed at 11:58 p.m. Michael. This time I answered. Happy New Year, Mom, he said. Happy New Year, I replied. I wanted to tell you, he said. I'm starting over. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. That's all any of us can do. There was a pause. Do you think, he asked, we'll ever? I don't know, I said honestly. But I'm open to finding out slowly. He exhaled. Thank you. At midnight, fireworks bloomed outside my window. I hung up and sat in the quiet. I thought about the word burden, how they'd used it like a weapon, how it had landed. I thought about all the weight I'd carried, all the weight I'd set down. I wasn't light, I wasn't fragile, I was free. January settled into my bones the way winters do when you've lived long enough to recognize their particular quiet. I kept my routines. Morning tea. A walk if the sidewalks were clear, volunteering twice a week at the legal clinic. Life had a shape again, and I guarded it carefully. Michael called once every 10 days or so, always brief, always careful. We spoke about neutral things, the weather, his counseling sessions, a book he was reading because his therapist suggested it. He never asked for money. I noticed that more than anything else. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend like bone. It heals like glass, clear, functional, but forever aware of where the cracks were. In mid-January, Ellen invited me to lunch. You're becoming something of a case study, she said, smiling as she cut into her salad. That sounds ominous, I said. Inspiring, she corrected. We're seeing more older women come in prepared, assertive. You'd be surprised how often they say, I don't want to end up like Judith Harris. I laughed, startled. I never wanted to be an example. Most people who change things don't, she said. The first micro hook of that winter came unexpectedly, in the form of a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. This is Dr. Elaine Morris, a woman said. I'm calling regarding your son. My heart stuttered. Is he all right? Yes, she said quickly. This isn't an emergency. I'm his therapist. With his consent, I wanted to speak with you. I hesitated. About what? About boundaries, she said, and expectations. It's working through accountability, but part of that is understanding what reconciliation could realistically look like. I closed my eyes. The word reconciliation felt heavy, hopeful, dangerous. What are you asking me? I said. Nothing, she replied. I'm offering space if and when you're ready. I'm not ready, I said. That's an answer, she said gently. February arrived with ice storms and a letter from the court confirming Michael's compliance. Restitution payments had begun. Small, regular. He hadn't missed one, I noticed. Karen sent no further messages. I heard through Louise, who had an uncanny talent for overhearing things at the grocery store, that Karen was telling people she'd escaped a toxic family. I let her have it. Everyone needs a story they can live with. The second micro hook came in March, when a man knocked on my door wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. My name is Daniel Roth, he said, holding out a card. I represent your grandchildren. I felt the air leave my lungs. You represent? They're minors, he said. Their interests specifically. May I come in? I considered slamming the door. Instead, I stepped aside. He sat at my kitchen table, hands folded, eyes sharp. There's a trust, he said, with conditions. Yes, I said. Their mother is concerned the conditions may delay access to necessary resources. I smiled faintly. Their mother is concerned about control. He didn't react. The trust stipulates educational milestones, life skills benchmarks, and the absence of criminal behavior, I added. Yes, he said. I leaned forward. Those conditions exist to ensure the money helps them, not harms them. He studied me for a long moment. You're not the villain I was expecting. I rarely am, I said. He left without asking me to change anything. April brought spring, and with it, a strange grief I hadn't anticipated. I missed the idea of my son. The version of him I'd carried in my head for years. Letting that go felt like another loss layered on top of everything else. I spoke about it with Louise one afternoon while we weeded my garden. You're mourning someone who never really existed, she said. No, I said. He existed, he just changed. She nodded. So did you? The third micro hook arrived on a rainy Tuesday in May. I was at the legal clinic when a young woman sat across from me, her hands shaking. My son says I owe him, she said, that I ruined his life by not helping him enough. He's been taking money I don't know how long. My chest tightened. What do you want? I asked her. She looked at me like the question itself was foreign. I want it to stop, she whispered. I helped her draft a plan, documents, boundaries, support. When she left, she hugged me, hard. Thank you, she said, for believing me. I sat there for a long time after she was gone. June marked a year since the chant. The anniversary surprised me. I woke that morning restless, uneasy. I tried to ignore it, but memory doesn't respond to orders. That evening, Michael called. I know today might be hard, he said. I closed my eyes. You remembered. Yes, he said softly. I'm all right, I said, but thank you. I wanted to ask, he said, hesitating. Would you consider meeting with Dr. Morris present? I thought of Ellen's lunch, of the therapist's call, of my own steady life. Not yet, I said. But maybe soon. That's fair, he said. July came with heat and a letter from one of the charities I'd funded. They were naming a scholarship after me. I cried when I read it, quietly. Alone, I hadn't needed recognition, but it felt like a counterweight, a reminder that my life had reached farther than one family table. The fourth micro hook came in August on a day that should have been ordinary. I was grocery shopping when I heard my name spoken sharply behind me. Judith, Karen. She looked thinner, harder, her eyes darted around like she expected witnesses. You think you're untouchable, she said, hiding behind lawyers and paperwork. I kept my voice calm. This isn't the place. You ruined us, she said. You ruined my children's future. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No, I interrupted a pattern. She laughed bitterly. You always thought you were better than us. No, I said. I thought I was responsible. There's a difference. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away. I stood there shaking, then finished my shopping. September brought the meeting. Ellen arranged it, neutral office, Dr. Morris present. Michael walked in looking nervous but composed. We sat across from each other. The therapist guided the conversation carefully. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, Michael said. I'm here to acknowledge harm. I listened. He spoke about entitlement, about resentment, about how easy it had been to justify taking because he believed I'd always recover. I thought you were unbreakable, he said. I am not, I said quietly. He nodded. I know that now. We didn't hug, we didn't cry, we spoke honestly. When it ended, I felt lighter, not healed, but aligned. October came with crisp air and a letter from one of my grandchildren. The oldest, handwritten. Grandma, Mom says things about you. Dad says different things. I don't know who to believe. I just wanted you to know I remember you reading to me. I hope you're okay. Love, Emily. I held the letter to my chest. I wrote back, carefully, kindly, without blame. November passed gently. December approached again, but this time without dread. I was invited to speak at a small community center about financial autonomy for older women. I stood at a podium and told my story, not the chant, not the names, but the truth of preparation, of self-respect. Afterward, a woman in her 80s took my hand. I thought it was too late, she said. It isn't, I replied. On New Year's Eve, I sat at my kitchen table again. The same tea, the same quiet. At 11:59 p.m., my phone buzzed, a message from Michael. Thank you for not giving up on yourself, I smiled. At midnight, fireworks bloomed. I didn't text any names this time. I didn't need to. The year turned without ceremony, and I let it. January brought snow soft enough to quiet the city. I watched it from my window, wrapped in a shawl my mother had knitted decades ago. I'd kept it all these years, even when it no longer matched anything I owned. Some things earn their place simply by enduring. Michael and I fell into a careful rhythm. Monthly lunches in public places, always daylight, always neutral ground. We spoke about books, about therapy, about his efforts to rebuild trust with his children from a distance. He never complained. That, more than any apology, told me something had shifted. In February, Emily wrote again. Grandma, I got an A in history. Dad says you'd be proud. Love, Emily. I stared at the note for a long time before replying. Pride is a heavy word when you're learning how not to misuse it. I wrote back anyway. March arrived with a phone call that startled me. Mrs. Harris? A woman asked. This is the County Elder Services office. My chest tightened reflexively. Old instincts. We wanted to thank you, she said. Your case led to 3 additional reports. Women who recognized patterns after hearing about yours through legal channels. I closed my eyes. I didn't mean to. You meant to survive, she said. That's enough. The first micro hook of that spring came when Ellen forwarded me an email. Subject, settlement adjustment request. Karen's attorney was asking, again, for reconsideration of the trust conditions. This time, citing the children's emotional well-being. Ellen's message was brief. We don't recommend engaging. I wrote back 2 words, agreed. April softened things. Trees bloomed. I planted herbs on the windowsill and found joy in pinching leaves just to smell them. At the legal clinic, a young volunteer asked me why I kept doing the work. Because I remember what it's like to feel invisible, I said, and I refused to be. May brought an unexpected invitation. A letter, cream-colored, careful handwriting. Judith, I'm getting married in June. I know things have been complicated, but I would be honored if you'd come. Love, bait. I sat with the letter for a long time. I wanted to punish her for the silence, for the chant she hadn't stopped. Instead, I asked myself a harder question. What kind of future do I want to live in? I RSVP'd yes. The wedding was small, backyard, string lights, laughter that felt earned. Bait hugged me tightly. Thank you for coming, she whispered. I should have done better. Yes, I said gently. You should have, she nodded, tears in her eyes. We danced later, not forgiveness, but something adjacent. The second micro hook came 2 weeks later when Michael showed up at my door unannounced. I opened it slowly. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I should have called. You should have, I agreed. He stood there awkwardly, holding a paper bag. I brought soup, he said. You always said apology without effort is just noise. I stepped aside. We ate at the kitchen table, the same one. The history of it hummed quietly beneath us. I got a job, he said, not great but honest. That matters, I said. He hesitated. Karen's trying again through lawyers, I sighed. She will. I told them no, he said quickly. About the trust, about you. I looked at him, really looked. Thank you, I said. June marked 2 years since I'd started the estate folder. The realization startled me. How much life had shifted in such a short span. I updated the documents again. Minor adjustments, clearer language, nothing reactive. Control, I'd learned, was not about tightening your grip, it was about choosing where to let go. July brought a heat wave and a surprise. Emily came to visit. Michael had asked weeks in advance. I'd said yes with conditions. One afternoon, public park, ice cream. She ran toward me like time hadn't passed at all. Grandma, she yelled. I knelt despite my knees protesting and caught her in my arms. You got taller, I said into her hair. You got smaller, she said solemnly. I laughed loud and free. We sat on a bench sharing a sundae. She told me about school, about friends, about how confusing adults could be. I don't think you're a bad person, she said suddenly. I swallowed. Thank you. I think grown-ups mess up, she continued. But some fix it, I nodded. That's very wise. She smiled, sticky-chinned. Dad says you're strong. I looked out over the park. Strength, I said, is what people think. The third micro hook arrived in August in the form of a medical appointment I'd been putting off. Nothing serious. A reminder, though, time is not infinite, it's persuasive that way. I spent that month simplifying, donating clothes, labeling photo albums, writing letters not to be read now but later, just in case. September brought the speaking invitation again. A larger venue this time, a small stage, a microphone. I told more of the story. Still no names, still no chant. But I spoke about dignity, about the quiet power of preparation. Afterward, a man approached me, late 70s, nervous. I thought it was only women, he said, being taken advantage of. It's not, I said, but it's often us who are expected to endure quietly. He nodded, eyes wet. Thank you. October brought peace, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of clarity. Michael and I shared a meal once a month. Emily wrote. Karen faded into background noise where she belonged. November arrived with a letter from the trust administrator. All benchmarks met, educational fund released. Emily's future secure and protected. I cried then, not from sadness, from relief earned honestly. December came back around, gentle this time. I hosted a small New Year's dinner, 6 people, chosen family. Louise brought pie. The book club women brought wine. Laughter filled the room without effort. At one point, Louise raised her glass. To Judith, she said, for teaching us that kindness doesn't mean surrender. They clinked glasses. I felt heat behind my eyes. At 11:58 p.m., my phone buzzed, a message from Michael. I'm grateful you're my mother, I typed back. I'm grateful I'm my own woman. At midnight, fireworks cracked the sky open. I stood in my living room, surrounded by warmth, and thought about that first night. The folding chair, the chant, the smile that hid resolve. I hadn't unleashed anything supernatural. No dramatic collapse. No grand reveal, just consequences. Carefully, patiently applied. And in the end, that was enough. The year after that passed more quietly than any before it, and I learned that quiet does not mean empty. It means chosen. I stopped marking time by holidays and anniversaries. I marked it by mornings when I woke without tension in my jaw, by afternoons when I forgot to check my phone, by evenings when I read until my eyes grew tired and not my heart. Michael and I continued our careful pattern. Lunch once a month, sometimes coffee instead. Always public, always limited, always honest. We did not pretend our relationship was what it had been, we let it be what it was becoming. He told me once in early spring, I used to think loving you meant assuming you'd always be there, no matter what. I stirred my tea slowly. That's not love, I said, that's entitlement. He nodded, I know. We sat with that truth between us, not accusing, not absolving, just present. Emily came to see me twice that year. Once in summer, once just before school started again. Each visit was supervised, respectful, and light. We baked cookies. We walked through the botanical garden. We talked about books and teachers and the strange, hard work of growing up. One afternoon, while we sat on my porch watching the light change, she asked, Were you scared, Grandma? Yes, I said honestly. What did you do? I got prepared, I said. Fear doesn't mean stop, it means pay attention. She considered that, then nodded like she was filing it away for later. Children always do. Karen never contacted me again. I heard things, of course, you always do. New job, new city, new grievances. I wished her no harm. I also wished her no access, both wishes held. In the fall, I revised my will one final time, not out of fear, but out of peace. Everything was clear, documented, intentional. No ambiguities, no assumptions. I signed my name with a steady hand and felt something settle. Ellen hugged me when we were done. You know, she said, most people wait until something breaks completely before they act. I didn't, I said. No, she agreed. You listened to the first crack. At the legal clinic, I began mentoring younger volunteers. I taught them how to read between lines, how to spot patterns that didn't announce themselves loudly, how to sit with someone's fear without rushing them past it. One afternoon, a volunteer asked me, Do you ever wish you'd handled it differently? I thought about that for a long moment. No, I said, I wish I hadn't needed to handle it at all. But once I did, I chose the only way that let me live with myself. That winter, I took a short trip by myself. Nothing dramatic, a small coastal town, a room with a view of the water. I walked slowly, ate simply, and let the sound of the waves reset something deep inside me. On my last night there, I sat by the window and thought about how easily my story could have gone another way, if I had laughed along, if I had swallowed the chant, if I had told myself it didn't matter. So many women do that. So many are taught that dignity is something you give away to keep the peace. But peace that requires your disappearance is not peace, it's erasure. When I came home, Louise had left a note on my counter. Welcome back. Soup in the fridge, I smiled. Spring arrived again, soft and unassuming. I planted new flowers. I cleaned out the last of the old papers I no longer needed. I framed a photograph of myself at 30, standing outside the courthouse in sensible shoes, eyes sharp, posture proud. I hung it in the hallway. Michael noticed it one day. You look confident, he said. I replied. I am. That summer, Emily sent me a picture of her first debate trophy. I pinned it to my refrigerator. She wrote, Grandma, I spoke up even when my voice shook. I wrote back, I'm proud of you. And I meant it in the cleanest way possible. As years stack up behind you, you start to understand that legacy is not what you leave people, it's what you refuse to teach them. I refuse to teach silence as virtue. I refuse to teach endurance as love. I refuse to teach that age makes you small. On the anniversary of that long ago New Year's Eve, I did something simple. I took the folding chair out of my garage, the one Michael had dropped off weeks after everything happened, without comment, and I set it on the curb. Someone else took it, someone who needed it. I went back inside and sat at my table, solid and steady, no extra space required. I am not a burden. I am a woman who learned, finally, that carrying everything is not strength. Choosing what you will no longer carry, that is.